Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at Phil Robertson, a figure who, well, definitely captured a lot of public attention over the years.
Mhm.
He passed away just recently, May 25th, 2025, at 79.
Yeah, and he leaves behind quite a, let's say, complex legacy. Patriarch of the Duck Dynasty family, obviously, founder of Duck Commander.
And a huge reality TV star.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And his passing comes just as we're hearing about the new Duck Dynasty, the revival
You're right,
series.
which is an interesting timing.
It is. And it's worth remembering, Phil Robertson wasn't going to be in that revival. His Alzheimer's diagnosis was made public, what was it, December 2024?
Yeah, that's right. So for this deep dive, our goal is really to go beyond just the headlines about his passing. We want to explore the key moments, the ups and downs, the controversies that really defined his public image.
And we're drawing on quite a range of stuff, news reports, some Reddit discussions, Wikipedia for the facts, and a pretty revealing YouTube interview as well.
Okay, so let's get into it. Where do we start? His early life.
Makes sense. He was born April 24th, 1946, Vivian, Louisiana. And by all accounts, I mean, his upbringing was very, very traditional, rural.
He talked about it in his book, Happy, Happy, Happy. Said his childhood in the 50s felt more like the 1850s, super simple, back to basics kind of life.
But even in that simple setting, he was a standout athlete,
Oh, yeah.
big time. All-state in football, baseball, and track in high school.
Hmm.
That athletic ability led to a football scholarship at Louisiana Tech.
Louisiana Tech. Okay. And that's where the famous connection comes in, right?
Exactly. He was the starting quarterback there.
Yeah.
And his backup,
Terry Bradshaw.
Terry Bradshaw, yeah.
Yeah.
NFL legend. Bradshaw himself often talked about how much more Robertson loved hunting than football.
I remember hearing that. Something about squirrel tails.
Yeah, and duck feathers at practice. Bradshaw apparently saw them. Gives you a picture.
It really does. And then there's that huge decision point, turning down a shot at the NFL.
Mm-hmm. The Washington Redskins, reportedly,
Hmm.
because it interfered with duck hunting season.
That's commitment. He had that famous line, didn't he?
He did. Terry went for the Bucks, and I chased after the Ducks.
Wow. I mean, when you contrast that with Bradshaw's drive for pro football, it really shows where his priorities were, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Polar opposites in that sense.
So after college, no NFL, what did he do then?
Well, he taught for a while, did some commercial fishing too. The 70s seemed like they were a bit of a rough patch, maybe. Some sources mention strain in his marriage.
And he ran a bar for a short time, 1975, I think.
Yeah, that's mentioned. It seems like a period of figuring things out, perhaps some struggles, before Duck Commander really took off.
Which brings us right to it. Duck Commander. How did that start?
It basically came from his own dissatisfaction as a hunter. He felt the duck calls available back then just weren't, realistic enough.
So he made his own.
Exactly. Around 1972, he invented his own design, one that could really precisely mimic actual duck sounds.
And that led to a patent.
Got the patent, and then in 1973, Duck Commander of the company was officially incorporated.
It's kind of cool how a personal frustration turned into such a successful business.
It really is. And that business, of course, became the foundation for everything that followed.
Right. Which leads us straight into Duck Dynasty.
Indeed. Fast forward quite a bit to 2012. A&A launches this reality show centered on the Robertson family and their Duck Commander business down in West Monroe, Louisiana.
And it wasn't quite like other reality shows at the time, was it? It had this sort of sitcom feel.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Unscripted, supposedly, but it definitely had recurring themes, character dynamics, almost story arcs. Maybe that's why it caught on so well.
And it ran for a good while, until 2017.
It featured the whole clan, really. Phil, of course, his brother Cy, who was a character.
Oh, definitely, Uncle Si.
And Phil's sons, Jace, Willie, Jep, and their wives were big parts of it too. Miss Kay, Corey, Missy, Jessica.
It became huge, like unbelievably popular.
Phenomenal is the word. That fourth season premieres in 2013, 11.8 million viewers.
Wow.
That made it the most watched nonfiction cable show ever at the time. Huge for A&E.
Just staggering numbers. And the money followed, right?
Oh, absolutely. In just 9 months of 2013, estimates were like $80 million in ad sales for the show.
80 million.
And merchandise. $400 million. It wasn't just a TV show. It was a brand, a cultural force.
It really was. And it ended after, what, 11 seasons?
11 seasons, yeah. Wrapped up in 2017, they even had ZZ Top played the theme song in the finale.
A fitting send-off. But, that kind of massive fame, it almost always comes with intense scrutiny.
Inevitably. And that brings us to the controversies,
Mm.
particularly the big one in 2013.
The GQ interview.
That's the one. It caused a huge firestorm and actually got him suspended from the show, temporarily at least.
What were the specific comments that caused such an uproar? There were a couple of parts, right?
There were. First, his remarks about African Americans in the pre-civil rights South, the Jim Crow era. He said they were godly and happy and, quote, no one was singing the blues.
Okay, that's it, yeah. And the second part?
The second part was about homosexuality. He essentially equated it with bestiality and promiscuity, saying it, quote, starts with homosexual behavior and just morphs out from there.
Right. And the reaction was pretty swift.
Immediate and strong. Guy L.A., for instance, called them some of the vilest and most extreme statements uttered against LGBT people. Just really strong condemnation.
And you mentioned Reddit discussions about his passing there. Those comments still come up.
Oh, absolutely. Even now, in threads talking about him after his death, people bring up that GQ interview constantly, both negative comments referencing it, mentioning other alleged past issues too.
Like what?
Well, allegations about treatment of his wife, affairs, even a mention of a secret child that came out later. But you also see positive comments, people defending him. It's very divided.
And someone on Reddit pointed out the blues thing.
Yeah, that specific point about no one singing the blues, a user correctly noted that blues music actually originated during and because of the hardships of that era, a direct factual contradiction.
So how did Phil respond to all the backlash at the time?
His defense was basically that he was just quoting scripture. He said he was paraphrasing the Bible and wouldn't back down from his beliefs.
And this is where it got really political, wasn't it? Salon had an interesting analysis on this.
Yeah, Salon pointed out that while many found the comments deeply offensive, they actually resonated with a specific cultural group, a base that the GOP often relies on.
So his suspension from the show became a kind of rallying cry.
Exactly. It turned into a debate about free speech, about religious liberty, about cancel culture. Before that term was maybe as common, conservatives framed it as an attack on his right to express his faith.
And some high-profile Republicans weighed in.
They did. People like Senator Ted Cruz, Governor Bobby Jindal, they defended his right to speak his mind, even if they didn't explicitly endorse the content of what he said.
The argument being that the politically correct crowd was intolerant.
That was the line, yeah. That they were trying to silence dissenting views, particularly religious ones.
But the Salon piece drew a distinction, right, between defending free speech and defending the actual statements.
Yes, that's a crucial point they made. Defending his right to say it under the Constitution is one thing. Agreeing with what he said, or its factual basis, is another. The defense often focused on the former.
And A&E, they suspended him, but then what?
Well, the backlash from his supporters was intense. A&E faced petitions, boycotts.
A lot of pressure.
Huge pressure. And they reversed the decision fairly quickly. He was reinstated to the show.
So that whole episode really highlighted some deep cultural fault lines.
For sure. About speech, religion, values, media. It touched on a lot of raw nerves.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, but still central to understanding his faith. It wasn't just a background thing for him, was it?
Not at all. It seemed absolutely fundamental. His Christian faith was very public, very outspoken.
It was part of a specific church.
White's Ferry Road Church of Christ. He was a member and even served as an elder there. His faith seemed deeply woven into his identity.
And he often talked about his own past struggles, right? How faith changed him.
Yeah, he had a very open testimony about a religious awakening. He said it helped him overcome alcoholism and what he called a sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle from his younger pre-Duck Commander days.
He was also very vocal on certain issues, like abortion.
Consistently. He viewed it as a violation of the Declaration of Independence, talked about it frequently. It was a core part of his public stance.
And this faith influenced his political involvement, too.
Seems like it. He made several political endorsements over the years, helped Vance McAllister win a congressional seat, endorsed Ted Cruz, then later Donald Trump for president, and Roy Moore in that controversial Senate race in Alabama.
Okay, so we have the business, the show, the controversies, the faith. Let's maybe circle back to the thing that started it all, the duck calls.
Right, the foundation. His passion for duck hunting was clearly the driving force there.
That YouTube interview you mentioned, did it shed light on the invention process?
It did. He talks about just being unhappy with the calls on the market back then. Spent years, apparently, just tinkering, experimenting in the 70s to get the sound exactly right.
Mimicking specific ducks.
Yeah, he aimed for really accurate sounds, mallards, pintails, teal, wood ducks. He gets quite technical explaining how he uses the uvula, or wella as he calls it, and tongue movements.
Ha, yeah, I saw that clip. He advised practicing away from your wife.
Exactly. Said something like, don't stir her up. Just classic Phil Robertson humor mixed with genuine expertise. He claimed he was the first to make a whole range of realistic whistle calls, too.
And he patented the original designs.
He did, but he mentioned in the interview that those patents had long expired.
That interview also had that story about commercial fishing, didn't it, while he was building the business?
Yeah, that was quite something. He talked about fishing to make ends meet while developing the duck calls, and apparently people were stealing fish from his nets.
So what did he do?
He said he read a scripture about not repaying evil with evil, so instead of confronting them, he just started giving them fish, putting fish aside for them.
Wow, that's quite a story. Shows a different side, maybe.
It offers a glimpse into his mindset, his interpretation of his faith in action, during those earlier, leaner years.
So moving towards his later life after Duck Dynasty ended, he didn't just disappear, did he?
No, he stayed somewhat in the public eye. He appeared in that Steve Bannon film, Torchbearer. And he had his own show for a while on CRTV, In the Woods with Phil.
And there was that movie last year, The Blind.
Right, 2023. That focused on his early life story, before all the fame, his struggles and conversion.
And then, as we said at the start, the news came in January 2025 about Duck Dynasty, the revival.
Focusing on Willie and Corey and their family, and confirming Phil wouldn't be involved because of the Alzheimer's.
Which sadly preceded his passing just a few months later.
Yeah. The family statement after his death really emphasized his faith again, his desire to share the good news of Jesus, their gratitude for his impact.
They mentioned plans for services.
It's a private service first, and then a public celebration of his life to be announced later.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the picture that emerges? It feels pretty complex.
Extremely complex. You've got this incredibly successful businessman, this massive reality TV star, but also this deeply religious figure whose outspokenness created huge waves, both positive and negative.
Yeah, we've touched on quite a lot. The surprising athletic start, the incredible phenomenon of Duck Dynasty, those major controversies from his interviews, his unwavering faith being front and center.
His genuine innovation with the duck calls, that whole backstory, and then ending with his illness and passing. It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. And maybe that leaves us with something for you, the listener, to think about.
Yeah.
Well, how figures like Phil Robertson, who operate kind of outside the usual political arenas, can still have such a massive impact on culture, on political conversations.
That's a great point. The intersection of celebrity, faith, business, and politics.
And it also brings up that ongoing tension, doesn't it, between freedom of speech, which was invoked so much around him, and the responsibility that comes with having such a huge public platform. Where do you draw the line?
How do you reconcile all these different parts of someone's life and legacy, especially someone so polarizing?
Exactly. Something to consider. How do you personally make sense of the Phil Robertson story?